The HBO documentary, The Apollo, examines the history and the legacy of the world-famous Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York City, and what it meant and what it continues to mean to the African-American culture over the years. We are joined by the film's director, Roger Ross Williams. I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby. And Roger, the first thing I want to ask you is why did you feel like now was a good time to tell the story of the Apollo?
Yeah, well, the Apollo for me is the story of Black resilience and the story of how African Americans use music and art to lift themselves out of the legacy of slavery and oppression. And so, I wanted to show how much things have changed, but mostly how much things have not changed. With the open season on the shooting of unarmed Black men, this was a perfect time to tell the story of resilience of Black people, but also show that the struggle continues. And sort of, and by doing that in the film, focusing on Ta-Nehisi Coates and Between the World and Me. So I felt like it is timely, but it's also a look back at where we've come from.
Did the Apollo Theater play any sort of influential role or notable role in your experience growing up?
Yeah, a huge role. When I was in college, I went to NYU, to New York University, and I came from a small town in Pennsylvania, and when I came to New York, I would on Wednesday nights go to amateur night at the Apollo. And going to amateur night at the Apollo, to me, reminded me of the small town Baptist church where I grew up. My father was a minister, and I grew up singing in the choir. And there's that call and response with the audience at the Apollo. There's that connection that no other theater, no other audience in the world has that connection to the artist and is in dialogue and in conversation with the artist. And that reminded me of the Black church. The Apollo really is a church. It's a church. It's a temple to Black art and Black achievement. So it was really great to go on Wednesday night and see the craziness and the engagement of the Harlem community with whoever was on that stage.
Did you get to meet back then? What's the name of the? I can't remember the name of the woman in the front row who's always there on amateur night.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just blanked out myself. Yeah. Well, she is a legend, and I did not Eva Isaac. I did not meet Eva, but she, she was a amazing. When we just found the footage of her, because it was, she had her seat, and someone said, you've got to interview Eva, and when I sat down to talk to her, it was kind of one of my most fun interviews because, she's older now. She has a little bit of dementia, but she was hysterical. She just sort of told it like it is, and it was just so refreshing. And her son was there, and I felt it was also very emotional because she saw so much, and she's such a part of that theater and that history. And she moved away from Harlem, and she was living in Virginia, and she came up for the interview, and it was just great to have her back in New York.
She has my favorite line in the movie when she says, "What Eva want, Eva get."
Yes. Eva want, Eva gets. Yeah. Oh my God. She said she started rubbing on them, and it's just so great. And the she just that was defined her. She was someone who immigrated in the Great Migration North to New York and to Harlem, and she found this home in the Apollo where she could be herself, where she could express who she was and have fun. So she's an amazing woman.
One thing that I did notice about the film was that there was only a brief bit in the film about the stand-ups that performed at the Apollo over the years, and I'm curious as to why there wasn't more of a dive into the stand-up aspect of the Apollo's legacy.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with 85 years of history in 90 minutes. And it's hard not to gravitate towards the music because of all the incredible people, starting with Billie Holiday, all the way through James Brown, Aretha Franklin, all the incredible talent on that stage. It's hard to not, tell those stories about all those artists, because a lot of those artists were discovered on Amateur Night, and Amateur Night started 85 years ago with Ella Fitzgerald winning the first Amateur Night. So we wanted to do more of the comedians. We do show this sort of a great moment with Dave Chappelle, who got booed off the stage 3 or 4 times. And the great thing about Amateur Night and about that process is it made you a better artist. And he said it made him the comedian that he is today. It made him Dave Chappelle, sort of going up there, facing that audience, failing, and having to go back and do it again until he won them over, made him a better comedian. And the same thing with the musical acts that performed on that stage and dance acts. It made you a better artist to face the Harlem audience.
One of the so looking at your career, in general, what I found so amazing is that you've chronicled a variety of subjects in your documentaries over the years. Music by Prudence, God Loves Uganda, Life Animated, and now this, and all the and now the Innocence Files. I'm curious, how do you determine what subjects you want to focus on for your films?
Yeah. For me, every documentary I make is personal. It's a part of me. It's something that I'm interested in, but I also pull from my own personal experiences, whether it's my feelings of alienation in identifying with someone like Prudence Mabena, who was rejected and thrown away by her family and her culture, or my feelings of rejection of the church as a gay man in God Loves Uganda, my sort of appreciation and feelings of art and especially sort of Black artists and the Apollo. All of this is all the choices that I make of the films and the stories I want to tell are sort of connect to me personally, because I think to make documentaries, you have to have that passion, you have to have that personal connection. So I feel like each of them is a part of me.
I mentioned that you are an Oscar winner. You won Best Documentary Short for Music by Prudence in 2009. And I'm, it's not often I get to talk to an Oscar winner, so I'm just curious, what was that night like for you?
That was my first independent documentary. And imagine, this sort of, kid from a small town in Pennsylvania took a chance and went to Africa and made a documentary on my own dime, really often shooting it myself with some help of friends. And then you end up on that stage at the Kodak Theater, and it's out of body. It's surreal. Nothing kind of prepares you for that moment. It's a blur, but it's also a night I'll never forget. And I was notoriously Kanye'd there, and that made it all the more interesting, and it actually put me on the map, because in the short documentary category, people go for their nacho chips. They're not paying attention. But when that happened, everybody paid attention, and I was the biggest news story the next day, which was really crazy. And I was on Larry King, and I woke up and there was all this paparazzi in front of the hotel, and I was like, who are they there for? And they're like, they're there for you. So it really sort of put me on the map, and now I sit on the board of governors of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, alongside, heroes and great filmmakers like Steven Spielberg, and actors like Laura Dern or Tom Hanks, and Whoopi Goldberg, and all of these incredible. Like, now I am an insider. I am part of the Oscars. I'm the actual leadership of the Academy, and that also is kind of surreal. And I've been governor since 2016. It's my second term, but I still don't get used to it. And and now I go to the Oscars, and I go to the rehearsals every year, and I go and inspect the governor's ball and make sure the napkins are lined up and everything is in place. And I'm like, this is my ball. I'm like, how did this happen? And it's really, really exciting. And the great thing about it is that I get to open the door to other people like me, to filmmakers of color, from underrepresented communities, who don't necessarily think they can actually get a seat at the table. And I get to sort of welcome them, and welcome them to the party. So it's very exciting.
And also, just elaborating on that, it seems like being a part of, the awards scene is something of a regular thing for you now. I mean, even removing the fact that you're a governor of the Academy, of the Motion Picture Academy now. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you have found yourself getting used to? Or was it like a process to get used to it, if you've gotten used to it?
I mean, I don't think you ever get used to winning an award. It's always an honor. I think that, for me, I'm just happy that the work I do that often highlights the plight of outsiders, of people who are not part of the mainstream, whether it's Owen, a young man living with autism, struggling to sort of connect to the world, or Prudence Maldana. It's for me, these stories are so important, and that the fact that they are recognized is wonderful, and it allows me to basically have a seat, and whether that's sitting on a festival jury, or a committee, or a board, or the board of Tribeca, or the board of Full Frame. It allows me to basically promote those types of filmmakers like myself, and those types of stories, and gives me, it's a great honor. It's a great honor to be in the position that I'm in, and I'm very thankful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Roger. We wish you all the best during this year's Emmy season. And to all our viewers, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel and see all of our most up-to-date content. And don't forget to go to goldderby.com and use the Gold Derby app to make your predictions and see if you can outsmart the smartest prognosticators in Hollywood. Thanks again, Roger.
Thank you.